Welcome to Turn Extension, a supplemental podcast for the Advanced Maneuvers YouTube channel.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Turn Extension. My name is Tony, or Polar Bear Cub on the forums.
Hey, it's Kevin.
Hey everybody, it's Devin, Cutthroat Cure on the forums.
Alright, so today we have Devin that just came back from Adepticon earlier, or I guess not today, but a few days ago. And also we have a special guest, Justin, on the podcast.
Hi everyone.
Justin do, yes. So I guess Justin, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I am a Protectorate of Menoth player. I've been playing the game for about, I want to say, close to 4.5 years now. Playing around the meta with, Kevin and Devin and Tony and Herman. And so, that's what I do.
Now, originally I can remember before Menoth you were doing Mercs, and then before Mercs it was Kato, right? And you're kind of bouncing between those two, and then you got to Menoth, and it's almost, I don't know, did something click? Because it feels like you got into Menoth, and it was like, I've reached, excuse the pun, I've reached the...
Yeah, definitely. I think it, I did hop around when I first started playing the game. I actually started the game with Rhett, I'm
sorry.
I looked at the models and I was like, man, these look like little Escaflowne. I'm not sure if anybody gets that reference, but it's an anime, and they look like Escaflowne, like Gymellis, and like giant robots. And I was like, oh, this is such an awesome game. I'm totally going to pick up Rhett. Didn't last more than about 6 months with that. Then I switched to Khador, and I played Khador quite a bit, primarily towards the end of Mark II, and focusing on Sorcerer 1 Oceans and Butcher 3. And then I saw Jeremy Miller's Nova Open Hardcore Finals game against Mike Ireland, and I fell in love with his Damiano play, and I was like, I need to play that list. And so I went into Mercs, primarily playing Damiano and Awesome Earthbreaker, until pretty much Mark III hit. And as soon as Mark III hit, I wanted a change of pace. I wanted a different faction. I still wanted to kind of like play this kind of infantry grind in the middle of the board kind of faction. And so I went to Menoth, and I've definitely found my home. I think Menoth is going to be, as far as I can say right now, Menoth is going to be my faction for the rest of my Warmachine career. So,
and you get a CID here soon, so...
Yeah, actually CID should be coming up. That's the one that's announced next.
Yeah, the Menoth Facebook group was joking around when I was doing well. They were like, quick, tank the CID so we get good, like, exemplar changes.
That's hilarious. All right, so, for today, I guess we're going to kind of jump in and talk about Adepticon. So why don't you guys, I don't know who wants to start off first, but when you guys start talking about kind of your experience. I mean, we definitely want to get into, I know, Justin, you did really well in Champions. Was it Champions, right?
Yes, and in Masters I got to finals.
He did good in everything. There wasn't a single event that he participated in that he wasn't in the top 8, and for Masters he actually was on final table.
Jesus.
Hey, there you go. So I almost want to start at the very, very beginning. Like, what was did you have any, you always hear people talk about the cons and the road to con story. Was there any significant that happened when you were going to a con? Is there anything you might want to, I don't know, bring up and talk about?
Justin, do you want to cover that one?
Well, so what I can say is Devin and I rode up together, but we had to drive out to Devin's house first to pick him up. And the two other the people in the car with me were coming from like DC and the Nova area. And while we were getting to Devin's place, our driver decided to take a usually a 15-mile-per-hour turn in normal weather conditions. And, Wednesday we had that huge blizzard. So there was like, a foot high of snow. He decided to take that at around 30 to 35 miles per hour.
Oh, Jesus.
And then we broke and then slid kind of into somebody's front yard over their like tree stump. And we were stuck there for about an hour, and Devin had to come find us.
Oh my God! Was that person pissed, or did they even know that it happened?
I think
Oh no, they know. They fucking know. So I had to get my wife's Xterra and start to pull them out of this stump in the middle of a fucking snowstorm.
I hope
And
no major damage occurred.
Nothing that duct tape didn't fix.
Oh my God!
We duct taped the front of the car back on and drove it to Chicago and back duct taped.
You
By the
heard it here
way-
first. Duct tape, solve all.
By the way, it was a Prius, so that makes it even better. So he's driving this Prius, this bright blue Prius, with the entire front duct taped with super grade duct tape up to Chicago. Trucks were trying to kill us.
Well, I mean, you're in a Prius. You can pretty much go underneath the truck in one of those.
That is very true.
So
You know
you
what?
trip
That's
up,
what the truck's called.
and here we go. Change lanes. So it sounds like the trip was pretty, and that I do remember that it was like there was a lot of snow and high winds and stuff like that. So I'm glad that you guys made it up there and back relatively okay. Was this your guys' first? No, Devin, you've been to Adepticon before, right? So
I have. This was my third year to Adepticon. So my first year was, I would literally say probably about 8 or 9 years ago for 40K.
Oh wow!
And it was not an enjoyable experience. And then I went last year, tried to give it another chance, and I had an absolute blast. It definitely became my second favorite convention, right behind Nova. And I had a blast this year. So, I mean, it's definitely a convention that if there's a possibility that I can go, I'm going.
So what about you, Justin? Was this your first time to Adepticon, or?
this was my first time at Adepticon.
So step me through it. Was it like grandioso halls and stuff like that, or was it like, oh, I'm at a con, cool, oh wait.
I think when you're doing like events after events after events, you're just stuck in kind of the same hall. You kind of do lose the kind of like bigger like con picture, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but you kind of lose the bigger feel of the con. I remember getting there and going like, holy crap, this is like a real miniatures con, because I've only been to, I go to Nova every year. I've only been to TempleCon once. And that's really it, like, for this game. I used to be a huge Magic grinder, and so I went to a bunch of different GPs all over the US for those kind of events. But like going to Adepticon and stepping in the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a vendor hall, like this is amazing. This is, it's like the Comic Cons that I go to. But I most of my time was stuck in Schaumburg West, so I didn't really get to. I mean, it was kind of like both a blessing and a curse not being able to play in the final day of Champions after making top 8 because of our travel schedule. We had to leave early. But it did allow me to go to the vendor hall and actually check out all the miniatures, check out all the crystal brush painting entries that were just gorgeous. And it definitely was, like, I would recommend Adepticon to anybody. Like, it doesn't matter if you play miniatures or not.
Yeah. That's interesting because it's one of the cons that I've heard a lot about. I've never had interest at the time to go and attend, just because I guess when I was first getting to the game, I remember Adepticon being everything had to be 100% painted. And before getting as heavily in advanced maneuvers as I did not like things being painted. So, but the more I hear about it, the more I find it interesting. It does seem like it's a lot more fun than I previously thought it would be.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The stuff only has to be painted for 40K stuff. The privateer press stuff runs like it's natural events.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought they required them to be painted.
That's a con requirement. The con requires it to be painted.
They didn't require it for privateer press, since privateer press runs it, because there was plenty of armies there that were unpainted. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think I'm going to correct you because the judges at the beginning of every single event was, this is a fully painted con.
Oh, really?
If your opponent was not fully painted, please raise your hand and report them. I know it sucks to do that.
I was gonna say, I think if your opponent was unpainted, you basically got to win because they got DQ'd.
Yeah.
Really? I did not know that, because when I was reading, because I went in there a few times and I know that I had seen like 2 or 3 people playing unpainted, but I know they were just playing regular games, so I didn't even consider that. That's great. That's amazing.
I think like, hey, if you're playing just Joe Blow A on a side table, maybe you can get away with it. But I think if it's an Adepticon event, no matter the game system, Adepticon requires it to be fully painted, and not even to the do you have primer on it. It's the kind of the old-fashioned 3-color minimum fully based crap. That to that level.
Yeah, that's what I thought that it was. Honestly, it was one of the things where I wondered if in the future we would see Nova Open switch something like that.
No,
their Grand Prix at Nova Open is 100% painted, but if John LeClaire, over John LeClaire's dead body, would we ever have a fully painted requirement? Warmachine and Hordes. One of the leads is for it, one of the leads is against it.
Oh, okay. So, all right, so let's jump back into Adepticon then. So you guys got there, you're pretty much in that one hall the entire time. So was it just only that's where only the tournaments were, or is that where all Warmachine was?
That's where all the tournaments were for Warmachine, and we kind of split the room. I think it was between us and Malifaux that we split the room.
Okay.
And then there was a bunch of other rooms for a bunch of other different games. And then there was one big room for the vendor hall.
So you were in Masters and you were in Champions. Which was the first one for you? Was it the Masters build-up that was your first, and then you did Champions after?
Yep. Thursday, Friday was Masters Day 1, and then Day 2, and then Saturday and Sunday was Champions Day 1 and Day 2.
So now, nobody ever well, I shouldn't say nobody. Most people go into a tournament and they're like, I'm here to do my best and I'm here to do anything. Did you have any sort of inklings? Were you, reading the tea leaves? Was there, cast the bones before to be like, I know I'm going to be on final table today? Or did it kind of just the moment catch up to you when you realized, I'm going to go through Masters and get all the way to the show?
So I don't think I ever felt that way. I went there, I went there with Danny and Anthony Gibbs, Danny McGee and Anthony Gibbs, and also Zach Lovett in our meta as well. We were just trying to represent our meta as best as possible. We've been going to ATC for the last 2 years, and we've been steadily improving. And we've faced against a lot of good players and good teams since then, and so, we're just trying to make our name a little bit more known and to have people respect and fear the Mid-Atlantic meta, which I think, is a very, very strong meta, but we don't have the wins to go along with it, the big wins. And the end result, I think, is, to have a team from our meta like qualify at ATC for the WTC in the next year or two.
And so you guys were the Mollywhoppers, right?
Yes, we were the Mollywhoppers. Okay.
So start us through your Masters. Game 1, what did you end up doing? Like, you show up on Thursday, you check in, everything's good to go.
And also talk about your lists.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of, lists are important.
Let's okay. So let me start off by saying, I guess, my overall feelings about the con and kind of the lessons learned. I think one, there's a lot to be said about being prepared and getting the reps in that you need with the lists that you want to bring. I find that a lot of times you can play into a disadvantaged matchup. Almost very few matchups in this game right now, I feel, are really dead. There's some way to play into that matchup. It may not be even close to a win, but you can actually play it. And so there's a lot to be said about the prep work and how much practice you should be putting in. And that goes a long way. The other thing that I learned too is that luck definitely does help a lot. I think I got lucky with a lot of my pairings. My lists going into it, I didn't want to see Convergence and I didn't want to see Nemo 3. And luckily, I didn't see either of those two. So even though I think I played into 9 out of my 10 games that I played in tournaments at Adepticon, I think were disadvantaged matchups, they weren't like that blazing red disadvantaged matchup that Nemo 3 and Convergence would really be for me. And so there's definitely a bit of luck to go along with that. Like I feel bad for my friend Danny. He gets to play in the JVM round 2, whereas I get to play into like not a shark, right? And so part of that also adds into the idea that for some reason I think that Harbinger was a dark horse at Adepticon. I don't think a lot of people got a lot of playtime into Harbinger. I think they knew she was floating around the meta and that she was becoming popular again. But they weren't really prepared to fight against, somebody who has put in 60, 70, 80 games of Harbinger in the last year or so.
Jesus, that's a lot of games of Harbinger.
Yeah, I have to thank Danny for that. He's a huge for this is a compliment, but he's a slave driver when it comes to practice. I think we tried to get 100 games in for each list before the next ATC.
Let's be honest, Tony. You and I don't have 60 games together totaled over the last 2 years.
I know, since Mark III, I don't think we do.
Yeah, and so and in Champions as well, I don't think they were, too many people practice into Durst. And the list that I ran for Durst was, I want to think, pretty unique. I don't think people were really, I don't think people are really teched for, defense 14, armor 23 heavies. So I guess with that, I can go into the lists.
Yep.
So in Masters, I played Harbinger Testament. And I'll go through the Harbinger list first. It's Harbinger of Menoth with a Hierophant, a Devout, a Crusader, and a Guardian. That's for the battle group. You have 2 of the monks. One, the Book, Vilmon, Rack, Rupert, Mechanic, a Champion of the Order of the Wall, which is the new Protectorate solo. That's on a horse with a dismount. Min Choir, Max Idrians with UA, and the Forge Guard with an Attendant Priest. And then for Testament, I had Testament.
God, I hate Testament.
I had Testament, Revenger, Devout, Mechanic, Rack, Elias Gade, 2 max units of Errants with UAs, 2 Knights Exemplars with UA, 1 Knights Exemplar without UA, and a Min Choir.
So the Harby list, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Harby list has a lot of Ode to Mark II Harby to it.
Oh, I should say the Harbinger list was in Faithful Masses, and the Testament list was in Exemplar Invocation.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of surprised at the fact if Harby is catching people off guard when obviously it's different because we didn't have the theme and all that stuff, but it doesn't sound like it was much different than the Mark II. Is it just, when you say that she's a dark horse, is it just because she hasn't been seen across the land in a while and people forgot what she did?
Yeah. I was walking into a lot of these matchups going they faced against the Paladin, they faced against Protectorate Jacks before, they've, played against Choir, they've even, some of them have even played against Harby back in Mark II. But coming into the matchup, they forgot about Awe in an activation, or they didn't realize that the monks are amazing now, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go attack this monk. And it's like, that's probably gonna waste your entire activation. That's not smart at all.
So would you be willing to take the blame of getting Harby nerfed in the next exemplar interdiction,
or hopefully getting those monks nerfed in the next CID?
The Protectorate Facebook...
Hashtag nerf the monks. Let's just knock them down. Knock down the monks.
I think if the monks get nerfed and for whatever reason I take credit for that, there's going to be an angry mob with pitchforks outside of my house from the Protectorate group. I think they're a brilliant piece with Harbinger, just because,
don't fucking die.
Yeah, because they can't die, right? With Harbinger. But I think with most other casters, they're an annoyance, and I think the annoyance you can't look at them and say that. I mean, they are quote unquote like 3 points, so they're very value costed for what they can do, but really they don't ever make an attack. They don't ever like charge something with POW 9 Weapon Masters. All they do is sit in the zone, and you try to engage them, they walk away from you, and then they walk back into the zone.
Yeah, the thing is though, the monks, you're saying they're 3 points, and I completely agree from a card standpoint. There are 3 points, but every time Harby martyrs them, it's like you put another monk on the table because those little I mean, for the most part, they're T-shirt saves. So if you can manage to get past the defense, most of the time you kill them, and then she martyrs them, puts them back on the table, and whether they have 5 hit points or 1 hit points, they're still a pain in the ass.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, so let's start through. We got these are the 2 lists for masters. So round 1, what are you getting paired into, and who are you dropping?
Right. So round 1, I play against Daniel Moore from St. Louis. He has Maylock, Rask. I don't exactly remember the Rask list and exactly the beast loadout, but I think it's pretty the pretty like common build with Rask, where you have all the journeymen. You have Roshan Bryan, you have the little snake lady, and then pretty much the traditional in meta like Maylock build nowadays with 4 units of Gatorman Posse, and it's either like Throg or the Soul Leech. It's the Soul Leech or Void Leech as a UA attachment, a couple of the Soul Slave, and a couple of Gatorman Witch Doctors, and then it's kind of a sort of pick'em battle group.
A giant wall of hit points.
Right. And so I dropped Harbinger into Maylock, which is disadvantaged Harbinger, because I think in that matchup you have a lot of like things that you need to accomplish with the Idrians that you have in the list, and you probably don't get to accomplish all of them. If you do get to accomplish all of them, then the game kind of swings in your direction. And it's also very scenario dependent. I think that matchup really comes down to whether or not the scenario is live or not, because I don't think either army wants to really grind in the middle of the table. Like, if it's a dead scenario and I'm able to get both monks into kind of like the only 2 places that need contesting, then nobody ever scores, and he just tries to kill monks all day, and I just sit back and let him. Versus in a live scenario, there's a little bit more outplay. You can flank harder on both sides. But unfortunately, it was a dead scenario, and I won on scenario. I scored 1 point, and that was all I needed to take him to clock, I guess. So it's a very, very close matchup, I think, with the lists how they are. And I think even though it's disadvantaged, I think Harbinger has a lot of play even into Maylock. And I think it's disadvantaged for the reasons that Maylock has mortality, which is ball busting against Harbinger.
Yeah, but it would be almost I almost feel like it'd be a dead match if the Maylock list could somehow introduce remove if mortality was instead of no tough, it was no healing or something like that. Like that would be crushing to the Harvey list.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so that one was a win for you, and you carried on to round 2.
Yep, where I played Damon from Tennessee, and he was rocking Trolls, Borka 2, and Kogrima. He dropped Kogrima, I dropped Harbinger.
Trolls?
Again, this was a clock scenario victory, basically he couldn't deal with the book. The book has Sacred Ward, and under Harbinger I can push the book really, really far and catch a lot of his army, so he really wasn't able to extend, and he had really no Grievous Wound applications. And the game kind of plays out where you have to be very careful in that game, because Harby hates sprays, and she just falls over to 1 really good spray, and Kogrima has like 3 of them every single turn, from 22 inches down the board with Mulg. So
where did you get that hot ass Kogrima tech from?
That was actually a matchup that I didn't really practice for, because I was never really the list pairing that I brought to Masters. I guess I should have said this earlier. Is the list pairing that I had been practicing for the ATC previous to Adepticon, so the 2018 ATC in January, and so I was very practiced with these lists, so I was very comfortable bringing in them to even bad matchups. But this list pairing does have a lot of holes. One of those holes is trolls. I generally don't like being dropped into trolls because I don't think I have a win into Madrak 1. You can play a game, but it's very it feels as disadvantaged, if not more so, than the Maylock matchup. So I had not really prepped for trolls, so on the ride over there, I was just like bugging Devin. It's like, what does Kogrima do? What's her spell list? Tell me about every single trick that you can do with Kogrima. Like, yeah, I know she has Vanish, so like, is she gonna like Vanish spray and then like, or is she gonna spray and then Vanish back? What does the little owl do? And so I had a little bit of prep into this matchup coming into it, and I was I was like, basically, if I can keep Harbinger safe and I can like mitigate these sprays and I can push the book up far enough, sooner or later it's going to catch Mulg, which kind of makes him not an arc node because he can't put up the Animus even before he charges in, because no magic stops that as well. And then if I push it deep enough, he can't deal with my monk that is going to be attacking his zone with anything. And yeah, after about I think it was turn 5 when I finally caught Kogrima, and she couldn't back up anymore unless she wanted to kill box herself. And from then on, it was just me clearing zones and just martyring, keeping the book alive and keeping central pieces that I needed to, kind of bubble wrap my heavies and take off his heavies that we're going to be contesting.
Sounds good. So what about round 3 then? This is all on day 1, correct?
This is all day 1, yeah. So round 3, I go into Jack Price from Arizona. Super awesome Signar player. He had Kane 3 and Siege 2. And I dropped Testament into, he dropped Kane 3. And this was one of those matches where I kind of like went into it, had a heart attack because I was like, shoot, this is Signar, like, this is bad. And then I look at both his lists, and there's no RFP in his lists, and I was just like, oh, okay, we're Gucci now. Like, they were both in Gravediggers. There was not an excessive amount of Electro Leaps either, and so I felt pretty comfortable dropping Testament into it. I was still very scared of Kane 3. Obviously, I had to, that caster makes Testament play a pretty honest game. But I basically fed him 2 whole units of Exemplar Errants, and then I killed Kane 3 with all the souls that I had. I had about 32 focus going into Kane 3.
32 focus?
Yeah, because it was my 6 focus stack plus 2 units of Errants, which is 24 focus total, and then like a splattering of 2 other models that he killed.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so that was won by assassination.
Oh my
God.
Then, you should have seen me. So that was actually, so I worked the vendor hall almost the entire con, and I walk into the hall where Justice Flag, and I look over at his table, and he has his little metal coins, and he has all of his metal coins. And then he's still talking about how he needs more metal coins because he's just got so much fucking focus.
That is so much fucking focus. That is fucking ridiculous. Does he hold it from turn to turn, or is that just one turn? You fed him all of that intentionally?
Yeah, so I fed him all of that intentionally in one turn, because I was like, you need to kill both of these units, or you're just going to be jammed out of scenario, and then I'm going to engage you the next turn regardless. So like, it's Kane 3 with a bunch of lights and a unit of trenchers, so you're not really gonna dig past once I am able to revive. And I made it juicy enough for him to like take off both units and still have enough like exemplars in the back to project and play an attrition game if he didn't want to go for it. But it's kind of like a tough, like if you don't have RFP, you're not really playing a game into Testament. You're kind of just playing this mini game of, do I clock or do I scenario lose against Testament?
Honestly, that's why he concerns me dealing with Convergence. He worries me because of that. I don't like the fact that I don't have RFP.
The problem with Convergence in that matchup is that with anything with double taps, just spray down way too many dudes.
Yeah, makes sense. Because
Yeah.
they are fairly balanced.
Yep. And there's some weird like soul like play going on if you play like the Axis like dude spam list. There's some weird soul play because he soul denies as well, but you know it's really weird to like you have to have your little like soul collecting pieces just far enough away, and then you engage me, and then you spray down a bunch of my dudes outside of my soul denial range, and so we have to dance around. And that feat, you know, Axis feat is still like probably I would say still the best feat in the game right now. Actually, after all the nerfs to all the other power casters, Axis is still like just pretty darn strong.
It's pretty amazing. Anyway, sorry, not to sidetrack you from more of your stuff. So,
so the final round of day 2, I was feeling pretty good at this point. Going in, I was like, okay, there's going to be probably 2 or 3 excellent ones that are going to be making it in, and you know, both Anthony and Danny had already you know, lost their games, and so we were like, okay, maybe all 3 of us can get in. You know, I was the one with the least amount of pressure because like I can probably lose this one and still get in, but you know, going into the round, I played into Legion Jesse Carmack, who was an amazing player. He actually got 3rd place at in Champions later on this week that week. He was from Tennessee. He played his champions pair in Masters, Fayana 2 and Thagrosh 1, and the matchup came down to Fayana 2 versus Testament. I think the major error, we talked about it afterwards, was he ADR'd out a throne. So he originally had 2 thrones in the list. He ADR'd one of them out because he thought it was going to get taken off by all these weapon masters too easily, which I think is a mistake because that was his like one source of RFP, because the throne has snacking. And so I think that was kind of the mistake. And then the Fianna list is pretty all right for me to deal with. I just need to play an honest game and keep Testament safe. And sooner or later, like I just start rolling the attrition. There's no way he can kill enough models that I can't just bring enough of them back. I think on one turn I revived. It was close to 14 models, and like Will Hungerford was watching me going like, oh, this is not okay. And I was like, oh, this is where I get Testament nerfed. But I have to do it. He killed like all my army, and I have like, you know, 20 souls, so I'm gonna revive like 14 models.
Yep.
We'll see where this goes.
Have fun. Hungerford, look the other way. Look the other way.
So what you're saying is when in this next exemplar interdiction CID, you're getting Harvey and Testament nerfed.
That's really kind of you.
Maybe.
Way to be a champion.
My thoughts exactly.
And then so come Friday, I'm in Masters Finals. I make it. Unfortunately, none of the other Mollywhoppers do. Really sad. But so sorry. I'm sorry. Anthony Gibbs totally makes top 8. I misspoke. I'm gonna catch so much shit for that. He also makes top 8. And 2 of us are in it, and we're like round 1 or round 2. Like, let's meet up. I have a really bad matchup into his pairing. He's running Sloan and Cray, and like I'm hoping that he's list lock because he played Sloan all 4 rounds day 1, and it's DNC 1 for both days though, so you can play one list for, you know, until the finals.
Okay.
Yeah, and so round 1 I play against another Signar player, and this was Zach Watson from Wisconsin. He was playing Jakes 2, Haley 2, and I was really surprised by Jakes in that pairing. But they were both had an excessive amounts of Electro Leaps, so I can't really drop Testament. I don't get souls from Electro Leaps. I don't get Battle Driven from Electro Leaps. It's just
that's an issue.
it's a bad time. And so I end up dropping Harbinger because I think I have enough dudes in Harbinger to actually play a fair game with Haley 2 now after her feat's nerf. And I have enough spell immunity in that list as well to kind of play against her. And then Jake's would just be like a very even matchups, and it just depends on me, like insulating myself and not getting Electro Leap to death everywhere. And so he drops Jake's. It's Jake's versus Harbinger. He goes for a like hard attrition play at first on one flank with the Storm Lances. His dice go really, really cold. He kills 2 Idrians when he should have probably killed like 8. And so as soon as that went bad, I think I wouldn't say panicked, but he audibled directly to his plan like X, which was kill Harbinger now. She's camping 10 behind a wall, kill her, because I'm not going to win this game on attrition now. Oh, no. And then he goes in for the assassination. It's pretty decent odds, but he needs to hit a couple of pretty like dicey like boosted 12s in order for it to start like train rolling down this path of Harbinger's gonna die. And he unfortunately doesn't make those rolls. And then again, Hungerford is there watching me. On my turn, Rupert goes up Pathfinder's Harbinger, and then Harbinger charges Jinx to end the game on the assassination.
Jesus. That's exactly why I came back and said, so Minoth CID is next. Just let everyone know.
So that exact move was the talk of all of the dev team as they were like, this is the kind of fight you want to see when Harbinger basically throws herself into the fight and kills a caster in melee.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's you know, I mean, that's like you walk past and somebody's like, oh yeah, Harbinger killed so and so, and you immediately assume Harbinger's army killed so and so, not Harby.
So round 5 is into Ben Tai, who actually beat Gibbs round 1. So he was playing Scorn. So at this point I was like, shoot, I'm the final hope here for the Mollywhoppers. I'm going to try to play my best. He's playing Scorn. He's from Indiana. He plays Xerxes 1 in Masters of War and Zadesh in Imperial Warhost. 2 really, really fun lists, I think. The Masters of War list definitely basically says you're not dropping Testament. And so Harbinger, and this is one of I think my fairest matchup of like both tournaments in all 4 days, because I think like Scorn doesn't have the map value to really come back outside of like Zadesh's feat turn and a couple of other like feats or actual map buffs. They do have some problem casters in Scorn that I'm kind of like I don't really want to see because this starts going into disadvantage territory, but I think I can take both Xerxes 1 and Zadesh pretty fine. So it becomes Zadesh, Zadesh, not 1, it's Zadesh 2. Zadesh into Harbinger, it was the matchup. The Zadesh list had double Derp Turtles with a Rhynodon, a Sentry, and a couple of lights. I think there was a Shaman and a Raider, I want to say, and then the usual Cray and 2 Agonizers. And this list was on a live scenario, and so basically Harbinger sat in her zone. I think this is called Outlast. I think that's the name of that scenario. Harbinger sat in her own zone and scored for 5 turns. And he couldn't get my army because he can't really martyr, and the monk stands in a zone and the other monk stands in my opponent's zone behind, like Harbinger's behind the forest within 10 inches of that monk. He just martyrs and stays alive the whole game. So that's very much a like kind of pillow fight in the middle because it doesn't really matter. If he can hit me, he one-shots me or anything that he hits pretty much, and then but I have martyr, so and so that ended up being a scenario win at the end of that game. And then into the finals, I play against Brett Fogel from Texas. He's playing Arcadius and Malok. Spoiler alert, he ends up winning this match because he ends up winning Adepticon finals. The match is again Maylock into Harbinger, and I lost the game probably around like turn 4. I was already out of the game via assassination, and so I basically like put the Devout next to Harbinger, ran her up the board, toughed her with Rupert, and I was like, I need something crazy to happen, like please try to kill Harbinger, and then like maybe I can like claw this way like back into the game by making 5s and 6 rolls all day long. But that did not happen. A Gator came up and ate Harbinger, and sad face, she died. And after SOS, I got 4th place.
Wait, what place did you end up getting afterwards?
4th after playing on the final tables with SOS.
That's
so
rough.
it wasn't final table variant.
It was not final table variant.
I guess that's one of the things I'm really hoping that in the 2018 SR packet, final table isn't a variant. Like, if you make it to the final table, you should be 1st or 2nd.
I mean, that's how I've always felt in the past, is if you make it to that final table, I understand, you know, it's all about luck and everything, and when do you end up hitting that champion? You know what I mean? But, I mean, come on. Going from final table down to 4th, that really stinks. Like, that's not fun.
I wasn't particularly too upset about it. I mean, I was happy with my run. I was happy with how I played, and this is with champions. The event that came after this, it was a little bit more of a like. I kind of felt in the zone, and so I was like, oh darn, I'm gonna make day 2 of champions. I can't do anything about this because I have to leave early. This is really gonna suck for all my opponents who I end up dream crushing.
Yeah, no, I get that, and you know, if nothing else, 4th place, running through all of those rounds, repping Menoth, you know, kind of holding the flag and being like, you know, in addition to people like Puryear and such, you're another individual who's holding up the faction of Protectorate Menoth, going, you can do it, like it can be done.
Is that really a thing though? Like I thought. Like, coming into Mark III and coming into Menoth, I thought Menoth was, like, widely regarded as a very strong faction. I did not think that people were like, we don't have many.
I don't think it's an issue of a very strong faction, but I think a lot of people immediately assume that Menoth underperforms because you don't see Menoth in the top 8 that often.
Interesting.
I think that's an issue with a lot of armies, though, is you don't see a lot of them in the top 8, so that what is to assume is that Menoth doesn't do well. I mean, like, on our channel, like, we haven't had Menoth for a while, I believe, shown. We've probably
I was going to say, the last 3 battle reports I did were Menoth, but that was a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was also Herman and me on one, so...
Yeah. There is a presence of Menoth. I think Menoth has always had Mike Puryear as kind of a faction champion, but I don't think that there are a lot of traveling faction champions that go to tournaments. You don't see them, like you see them, like I know was it Bones Con? You had a couple people that were showing up in there. They don't show up in the top 8, and I get the feeling looking at like the Menoth Facebook group, a lot of the Menoth group, it kind of boils into 2 sides of one coin. There's one side of the group, which I'm kind of on, which is Menoth has the tools to perform. Menoth has they're almost a situation where they have unlimited answers within their faction to a lot of things that are out there. They're kind of the universal wrench to all the other problems that are out there. They don't have a lot of people repping them. And then you have the other side of the coin who I'm assuming don't see the reps and are like, we need a CID, we need our faction buffed, we need these things going here. And I think that's just a representation of either inexperience or just not seeing somebody holding up the torch going, it can be done. This is the list that are doing it and stuff like that. I guess a prime example of it is you go into other factions, it's like Crix. Oh, everybody's now on the Slayer bandwagon or on the Dark Host bandwagon or something like that. And it's Menoth, it's like everybody's on the Testament bandwagon, and yeah.
Right.
Testament.
So you ended up going to top tables. You had an awesome run to it, and then you're like, you know what? Let's do it twice. Let's go into champions.
Right. So for champions, I played Durst and Thyra, both in Faithful Masses. My Durst list is Durst, 3 Castigators, a Sanctifier, 2 Champion solos, a Covenant of the Book, Vilmon, Rack, Mechanic, Min Choir, Max Idrians with UA, Ayana and Halt with the Attendant Priest. And my Thyra list was... I'm trying to pull up War Room so I don't misspeak. Thyra, Blood of Martyrs, Sanctifier, Avatar of Menoth, double champion solos, Rack, Vilmon, the Book, 2 Paladins of the Order of the Wall, Eilish, Mechanic, Min Choir, and Max Idrians with UA.
So Avatar and Thyra?
Yeah, so the original concept behind that was every single time I send Blood of Martyrs into something to trade up, I end up losing Blood of Martyrs, which really sucks. It's kind of like I get to trade up, but I lose Blood of Martyrs, and I don't really want to lose Blood of Martyrs. So what I came up with was, like, if I put the Avatar in the list, I can gaze in one direction and have the Blood of Martyrs going in another direction, and as long as I can catch the things that are going to kill Blood of Martyrs in gaze, I can make it go not kill Blood of Martyrs and maybe kill an Avatar, which, like, from a value perspective seems a little weird because, like, I'm losing a 20-point model instead of another model, but Avatar is a lot sturdier, right? He's armor 21, he has Sacred Ward, you can't really, like, deal with him, and then it also, like, screws up your activations when you have to, like, go in one direction, and then now Blood of Martyrs is safe, and then it's going to threaten 13 inches again.
Yeah, I guess it's like you're talking first. I'm like Avatar, and then you're talking like I have this 16-point model, and I want to save this 16-point model, so I put in a 20-point model as a diversion. I'm not following you, but you're doing a lot better with Menoth than I am, so I'm gonna let you go ahead and go with that.
It's also so I see a lot of Thyra lists run 2 heavies, and I think like that may be fine in the Guardians of Temple build, but in Faithful Masses, I think sometimes it's a trap to, like, max out on solos in Faithful Masses, especially since I think the best tier benefit that Faithful Masses gives is Hand of Vengeance. So you want heavies, and you want a unit, either Zealots or Idrians or whatever Merc unit option that you take, to be kind of the fuel for Hand of Vengeance, because it's 2/3 of a synergy train. And when you think about it like that, like, you give, any caster 2/3 of a synergy just on the spell, like on his spell card for free. He gets to cast every single turn, and just for your opponent playing the game, basically, like, killing your models that they need to be killed in order for them to win the game. It's really, really strong. And I feel like Avatar just provides this extra buffer. There's also really cool things that you can do to manipulate, gaze with the Book. If you catch their, like, caster or important spellcasting pieces within gaze, they can't move away from the Book, and therefore they're just locked in this, like, anti-magic zone.
Yeah, no, I guess I can get that. I just, like, you're talking about the Hand of Vengeance, and that's legitimately one of the reasons why I love the concept of Sanctifiers in Faithful Masses, just because they're fueling souls from what you kill, and they get angry when you kill something. It's like the perfect Faithful Max Jack. And oh man, Avatar's so damn expensive.
He is. I'm definitely riding him, though. I think low key, like, I'm testing out a 71 list right now that I've been talking to John Damaris. He's been loving his 71 list, so I'm gonna steal it for a little bit for practice. He has the Avatar in there as well, and that's in Creator's Might, actually. And that's a really, really like, interesting build for that. But I think the Avatar, you're gonna see more Avatar play coming out from Menoth players.
Good.
Yeah.
So Champions Round 1, let's go through this.
Yeah, so Champions Round 1, I play against Keithan from Illinois. He's playing Grimkin, Old Witch 3, and Heretic in Dark Menagerie, Old Witch being in Bump. This is the matchup. Since Danny plays Grimkin, I've had a lot of practice into Grimkin, and I've realized that really we have Krios 3 and the Europeans think I'm on. I'm still not on that boat, but they think that I think we in Menoth we have those two casters that can deal with Grimkin well.
Okay.
People can sometimes argue Resnick 2 as well. I can't move that huge base on a table efficiently. So I'm going into here going like, man, like this is one of the softer matchups on my end where I feel like I'm pretty disadvantaged. So I'm just gonna put Durst down because he was kind of designed to kind of the Thyrolist theoretically should be able to play into Grimkin, but I think it's just too risky in a like positional kind of way to play Thyra to keep her safe and not just like have your entire army evaporate. And so I wanted to see if I could, if I'm playing in a disadvantaged matchup, I generally like to play for like a scenario advantage and then go into turn 7 if I could hold that on. And I need a tankier army to do that. So I went with Durst. It became Dark Menagerie, Heretic into Durst. And I killed a lot of things with Durst. I don't think he didn't respect the threat range that I could project with Durst. I mean, I say that it's not really that far with Boundless Charge and Speed 5 Heavy, but it's further than Grimkin. So it's kind of a funny matchup too, because every single one of those, every single Heretic match, you're kind of like, well, if I cast Boundless Charge, he gets a threat range extender too, because I'm casting it in his controlled area, and he gets to cast Boundless Charge next turn. Yeah, so it ended up working out. He put 2 heavies into a zone to kind of like toe into it and try to get up on scenario. I took both heavies off with Hand of Vengeance, and then I feeded directly after that. And so with 3 Castigators and a Sanctifier, all of your entire army has Ashen Veil pretty much, your battle group certainly, and then with Durst's Spell Bulwark, you're getting a +4 defense swing, and when you're defense 14, armor 23, you're very, very hard to take out, and especially since like defense 14 is kind of where you don't want a heavy like defense to be, especially like an armor 23 heavy. Yeah. So I ended up taking both heavies. He didn't take any heavies off with his 1 heavy left, and then I took that heavy off and then just kind of won on scenario.
So kind of attritioned it out till you got to the scenario win?
Yep. The next match was against Eric Gonzo from Arkansas, and he was also playing Grimkin. It was King of Nothing in Dark Menagerie now, and Heretic in Bump. And we get another rematch of Heretic in Bump now, not DM, into Durst. Kind of the same thing happens, except there was a lot of stuff on the table. He ended up clocking himself, but the scenario was tied. We were tied on control points. And it was a mad dash. He killed pretty much everything other than my heavies, and then my heavies kind of just ran around the board. The cool thing with Castigators are you can still combust if they're like just crippled to hell. They have 1 box left, doesn't matter, combust. And so that ends up killing a lot of infantry in Bump. And that's basically how the game played out. There was a lot of weird things happening in that game because I had very little experience, despite practicing into so much Grimkin, with the I think they're called Cask Imps, or it's the thing that has like Stumbling Drunk, and then also like when it dies, it just explodes.
Yeah, Cask.
Cask Imps.
Yeah, they just explode d6 inches, and they move randomly, and whenever they touch something, they explode. Funnily enough, my entire battle group is immune to fire, so they don't really do any damage to my battle group, but Durst sitting behind my battle group was just taking, like, these POW 14 damage rolls over and over and over again. Durst had 4 health points at the end of that match because of just all this ablative damage that he was taking.
Jesus, that's crazy.
And then the final match of day 1, obviously I didn't play day 2, was against Carl Jones. He's from Kansas City. He was playing Crix. He had Terminus in Ghost Fleet and Denny 2 in Black Industries, and the Crix drop is kind of what Thyra is designed for. So I dropped Thyra, he dropped Denny 2 Black Industries, and I end up tabling him. There was nothing left at the end of the game but Denny in a zone, and the Idrians prayed Denny at that point because she was the only target, and charged Denny and killed her. And because I had killed so many models, I had killed 272 army points within 3 matches. That's where I got all the medals from.
Nice, that's awesome.
So I think we mentioned it before we were recording, but some of these medals were from Adepticon?
Yeah, so I got 3 medals for basically doing one thing, which was killing a lot of models. I got a challenge coin, a Privateer Press challenge coin for Champions Most Army Points Destroyed. There's also a medal that was from Privateer Press, and then also the Adepticon medal for Most Army Points Destroyed in Champions.
Nice.
Yeah.
So overall, good stuff. Like, what do you think you took? Well, we already talked about some stuff you took away from it, but are you looking at doing any more cons in the future?
Yeah. So I am. We have a couple of local events coming up soon that I'm pretty excited about. We have Baltimore Finals coming up. We have Store Wars, which is starting up again, which will be really good practice and really good, games in preparation for the Bokur Brawl. I'm for sure going to ATC. I'm for sure going to. I'm also going to Poland this year for WTC Solo Masters. I'm trying to fit in either Lock and Load or MuseCon coming up. But I don't know with my work schedule just yet which one I can commit to.
Okay.
And additionally, the Sioux is in 2 weeks, and I know some of the Mollywhoppers are going up there, namely Gibbs, and I believe Danny is still planning to go up to the Sioux.
Dude, that's awesome. I feel like Gibbs has definitely been traveling a lot lately. To a couple of different cons.
Yeah, we're all trying to level up really hard because we've been getting close at ATC and just losing to the teams that end up winning or losing to the teams that end up doing really, really well. Just small things. 7 inches. Who thought that Gatsby 1 could walk up and just kill you?
Makes sense.
Not charge, just walk.
Just walk up and just murder everything.
Yeah. Pro tip: don't ever put your caster 7 inches away from Gatsby 1.
All right, so any last questions anybody has before we wrap up the cast? I know, Devin, we didn't get to your experience. We might have to get to that next time.
Oh, it's fun, dude. I liked hearing about Justin's experience much more.
I mean, it was definitely exciting hearing all of the God, that was a crazy week for you, man. That's a lot of games you got in a short amount of time. And an impressive win-loss ratio.
I mean,
Yeah, I had to judge. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it just definitely goes to show if you want to, I just repeated it, if you want to go to the show, you got to put the reps in.
You got to play those 80-plus games.
Yeah, I know Justin, him and I had talked, and, I was always willing to grab him stuff from the vendor hall while he was busting his ass, kicking ass. But I know I was very happy that when he decided that he couldn't do the second day, that I was able to score him the ability to get into the vendor hall.
Yep. That was really, really awesome. I think knowing that now, I definitely would have regretted not being able to just go and visit the vendor hall, not worry about playing games, and just relax and look at all the cool miniatures and the cool stuff that was there.
Nice. All right, Justin, you got any final words before we wrap up?
No, I guess just thank you for all my opponents. I tried to get all of your names down, but thank you guys all for an amazing weekend, and thank you to the Privateer Press staff for running an amazing con and tournament. And thank you guys for having me on the show.
Oh, no problem, man. I'm excited you got to come on. I definitely think we need to get you on more often to talk some awesome Menoth tech for the future, so we can definitely get it nerfed, and even when the CID comes up, have you come on after that.
He'll have to explain to you his his all about his like training regiment using clover and honey. It's amazing.
Oh God. Are we? That's
Now I
inside.
definitely need to hear this next time. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of Turn Extension. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
everybody.